Radical equations. What is a radical equation? Just a reminder, a radical equation is an equation, an equation is a mathematical statement of equality. So that means you are going to see this equal sign. A radical equation is an equation that contains a variable and the radicand. So it will be under the radical sign, such as this. The square root of x is equal to 4. So if the square root of x is equal to 4, I'm still using inverse operations to solve equations. The inverse operation of a square root is a square. So I'm going to go ahead and square both sides of the equation, because what I do to one side, I must do to the other. The square root of x squared is just x, and then 4 squared is 16, so x is equal to 16. Let's take a look at some steps. When we're solving radical equations, we need to first of all isolate the radical on one side of the equation. So if it's not under the radical sign, it needs to be moved over to the other side. The second step is to square both sides of the equation. Third, solve the resulting equation. And fourth, check any solutions in the original equation. So here's our first example. We have x plus the square root of x minus 3 is equal to 4. So our first step was to isolate the radical, and we need to move that 8 over because he is not under the radical sign. So subtract 8 from both sides, and I'm left with the square root of x minus 3 is equal to negative 4. Now that I've isolated the radical, I need to square both sides. So I'm going to wrap this guy in a big parenthesis hug, square him, wrap that one in parenthesis hug, and square him. So the square root of something squared is just the radicand itself. That's x minus 3 is equal to negative 4 squared. Negative 4 squared is just positive 16. So x minus 3 is equal to 16. Add 3 to both sides. And then I have x is equal to 19. So before we move forward, we are going to check our solution because we'll see soon that some solutions don't make sense. So I'm going to plug 19 back into my original equation where x was. That gives me 8 plus 19, the square root of 19 plus minus 3 is equal to 4. So 19 minus 3 is 16. When I subtract 4 from both sides, I get negative 4 on the right and the square root of 16 on the left. The square root of 16 is 4, and then I have my typo here, which I should have fixed and I forgot. So 4 is not equal to negative 4. That was supposed to be negative 4 on the right. That means that there is no solution. 19 is not a solution to this problem. And if you look at the second line of where I have the square root of x minus 3 is equal to negative 4, I could have told you right there that's a big clue, big indicator that there would be no solution, because there is nothing that you can take the square root of that's going to give you a negative number. Let's practice one more time. So again, my first step is to isolate the radical. If it's not under the radical sign, it needs to go. Okay, we have the square root of 4x minus 3 is plus 5 is equal to 8. So that plus 5 is not under the radical sign and it needs to go. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. I have the square root of 4x minus 3 is equal to 3. Now that I've isolated the radical, I can square both sides. So I'm going to wrap that in a big parenthesis hug, square it, then square 3. And when you square something that has a square root, again, they're inverse operations, so that cancels, and you're just left with what is under the square root sign, which is 4x minus 3. And then 3 squared is just 9. Now I can solve it like I would a normal equation and add 3 to both sides. 9 plus 3 is 12, so 4x is equal to 12. I'm going to divide both sides by 4, which means x is equal to 3. So let's check our answer by plugging it back into the original equation. We have 4 times 3 minus 3, that's the square root of that guy, plus 5 is equal to 8. So 4 times 3 is 12, 12 minus 3 is 9, so that's just the square root of 3 plus 5. And then I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. which gives me the square root of 9 is equal to 3, and the square root of 9 is 3. Wow, I don't know why I subtracted 5 from both sides. The square root of 9 is 3, so 3 plus 5 is 8, and 8 is equal to 8. I'm totally awake. It's totally not midnight my time. Yeah, okay. Anyway, that means it is a good solution, and that is all for today. Thank you for watching this video, and have a very blessed day.